Hello, 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 and welcome back to DLA Alternative. It's your boy Brandon, and I hope everyone is doing phenomenal as always. We're going to jump right into this one, and this one has been a long awaited, and I have held off on this one for a reason because there is so much, and I want to connect all of season one to this theory. This theory is going to be the Will Byers theory. And this theory started based off of the Stranger Things secret video that I did with the finding of the hand from the Vanishing of Will Byers episode. So go check that video out if you haven't seen it, because there's some interesting stuff in there, and that's going to connect this entire theory. And this is going to be part one of the Will Byers theory, and it's going to cover from the beginning of episode 1 all the way until timestamp 815, right when Will vanishes and right when we see our hand from the Stranger Things secret video. The reason we're only going to cover so little of that first episode is because I want you to keep in mind, with the finding of that hand, that would mean that there is somebody on the outside portion while Will vanishes and after Will vanishes, watching what just happened. And the theory is going to be that someone needed to make sure that Will vanished in order for all of this and the entire show to actually take place. Which in season 5, we should see the reason why Will vanished and what happened while he was in the Upside Down. And we already kind of have some hints from the Duffer Brothers and from Netflix that is probably going to happen. So this would make sense why that hand would be there. But this hand was there all the way back in season 1. Years and years, almost 10 years. So it's a little interesting. So we start with the chapter, and it gives us our time date and our time stamp, November 6, 1983. We're going to skip that whole Hawkins lab scene because that doesn't really matter so far because we don't know a lot about what happens there. And I think we're going to get some answers going into season 5. So let's jump right to the Wheelers' house when we see the boys for the first time, and they're downstairs playing the D&D game, and Mike is explaining his campaign, and they're all worried that, oh, it might be the Demogorgon coming, it might be the Demogorgon coming. And while that's happening, I want you to keep in mind that, yes, this could be a continuity error, but keep in mind that that blinds rope right in the back on that door is moving the entire time, and those boys are nowhere near it. Just keep in mind that it is a little weird that it's moving the entire time. So if people are in the background making sure that this is happening correctly, then it's a little weird that that rope has been moving the entire time. So maybe someone's sitting there watching and they just can't see them. So while that's all going on, the boys don't know what to do and they're all scared that it's going to be the Demogorgon. And at timestamp 158, if you want to connect the 815 theory, I'm doing 158, 518, and 815. But at timestamp 158, Lucas says it's not the Demogorgon. So Lucas isn't worried that it's the Demogorgon, but Dustin is, and so is Will. And then all of a sudden, Mike says, oh no, it's the troglodytes. And they're all laughing, and Lucas is like, told you. I use that all the time in my videos. But right after that, Mike goes, wait, did you hear that? And he goes, boom, boom, and then boom, it's the Demogorgon. Well, keep in mind that happens later in season 1. That happens at the very end of chapter 7, the bathtub. And we see Will in the Upside Down in Castle Byers. And it's right before Castle Byers gets infiltrated and bashed in. And you hear a boom, boom. Well, is it really the Demogorgon or is it not the Demogorgon? We don't know that answer yet. And no doubt in my mind, we are going to get an answer to that in season 5. So right after they know it's the Demogorgon, you got to keep in mind that Will has no idea what to do, and he needs a 13 or higher in order to beat the Demogorgon. Well, Lucas and Dustin in this scene are kind of like your conscience, okay? Lucas is the bad side of your conscience, basically telling him just go for it, shoot him with the fireballs, attack, attack. And then Dustin would be the good side of your conscience, where he's like, no, play it safe. Use protection. So Dustin is more of the protective side, and Lucas is more of the aggressive attacker side. So keep that in mind, because that kind of changes throughout this entire show. So Will has a decision to make, and Will chooses to go with anger and aggression and attack the Demogorgon. Well, he rolls, the dice goes missing, and Mike gets called upstairs by Karen. Well, keep in mind, if someone's in the background that they can't see, I want to ask you a question. What if Will actually did roll a 13 or higher, and somebody in the background changed that dice when they couldn't find it to make sure that he rolled a 7 in order for him not to beat the Demogorgon in that game? That would be kind of interesting if we see something like that, that someone actually changed the dice in the background when they couldn't find it. It would be kind of crazy, wouldn't it? So while Mike goes upstairs, he's arguing with Karen, and Ted's in the background messing with the antenna to the TV, acting like it's not working and stuff. Well, the antenna to that TV connects to an antenna on top of your roof, okay? So if someone's on top of the roof, maybe hitting the antenna, maybe that's why they're having this problem. Yes, there's shit going on at Hawkins, but they're not having electrical problems in the whole house. It's just that antenna. It's whatever is giving a signal to that TV is getting messed with, which is on the roof. So keep that in mind. But what's also interesting about that scene is that Ted is watching Knight Rider. Knight Rider is a show that used to be on years ago, and it stars Dustin Hoffman, okay? Well, we have a character named Dustin, and the show is called Knight Rider, and we see Dustin kind of dressed up as a knight later in season 4 when he's with Eddie in the Upside Down, which is kind of interesting, okay? Well, keep in mind that episode on November 6, 1983 was called K-I-T-T the Cat. And it was about a cat burglar that is presumed to be dead. And those same types of crimes have started up in the city again. And they don't know who it is because that burglar is supposed to be dead. Well, the suspicion now goes on to the daughter of that burglar. And that's all I know about the episode. I've never seen it. So it's a little interesting what that episode was about and why that was on the TV that night. So it's kind of crazy. But as we continue, it goes down to the boys down in the basement, and they find the dice, and it was a 7. And Will tells Lucas, and Lucas goes, well, Mike didn't see it, so it doesn't count. Well, their rule is friends don't lie. So they were all about to lie to Mike and not say shit. So Dustin asks the boys, hey, do you guys want this last slice of pizza? And he goes upstairs, tries to give it to Nancy and be nice. Well, there's not a lot of explanation to that scene other than that's the first time we see Nancy. And she's being mean to Dustin and slams the door in his face. Well, if you think about it, if someone's in the background and possibly on the roof, which we know that Steve knows how to climb up that roof, and so does Nancy, and so does Jonathan, and they know that that's a way they can get into the house from Nancy's bedroom, right? So if someone's on the roof, maybe someone's listening to this and they see Nancy be mean to Dustin, and maybe it's Nancy that gets to see this for the first time and really see how she used to act as a little snobby teenager who didn't care about the boys anymore. It would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? So after that, Dustin goes outside and he tells Mike, oh, what's wrong with your sister? She has a stick up her butt. And they're talking about Nancy, and they have a whole conversation about Nancy. So it's a little odd. And Lucas also brings up that she started acting this way when she started dating that douchebag Steve Harrington. So it would be so funny to me if we see this in season 5, that maybe Nancy and Steve were both there listening and hearing all of this happen, and they get to see what the boys were actually talking about. It would be kind of cool. And right after that, they even say something nice about Nancy, and they say she used to be cool. She used to dress up as an elf for our Elder Tree campaign that one time. And Mike goes, oh yeah, 4 years ago, you know. So it's kind of cool, and it would be awesome to see if they get to hear that conversation. And right after that, the boys leave, and Will is honest with Mike, and he says that it was a 7, and that the roll was a 7, and he did not beat the Demogorgon. And then he says, see you tomorrow. And as Will leaves, that light blinks, but that light does not blink in the way a Demogorgon would make it blink. That light blinks like it was a signal letting somebody know that Will just left the house. So keep that in mind. And right after that, the boys leave, and Lucas goes home, and then it's Dustin and Will, and they're racing home. And right at timestamp 518, which also connects to my 815 theory coming soon, Dustin says to Will, I'm gonna kill you. Which when I started doing the 815 theory and saw the first one with Lucas saying it's not the Demogorgon, and then this one with Dustin saying to Will, I'm gonna kill you, I did not like how that was going right off the bat in season 1. But we will continue that with a whole different theory. But he says that, and that's the last time Dustin sees Will right before he goes into the Hawken Labs grounds. And he enters that, and right when he enters those grounds, you hear an owl in the distance, like a hooting, right? Well, an owl is a symbol of wisdom. and Will we know as Will the Wise. So throughout the whole show, I have been trying to keep track of just owl sounds or the symbol of an owl, which we see a lot through the show. So I have a feeling that might be a secret little hint to let you know to be wise when watching that scene. Who knows? That's just a little thought, and I want to know your thoughts about that. If you've noticed anything about the owls and weird things happening when you see an owl in a scene, keep that in mind. But if that owl was somehow a signal or another signal letting them know that Will just entered the grounds, it's a little odd because the next time we see Will driving and then his light blinks, right? And that one comes off more like kind of like a Demogorgon a little bit. You hear the sound behind it. Well, it blinks right before he sees that, and then it distracts him, so he looks down, and then he looks up, pulling right off and falling off the side of the road. Well, if you see that Demogorgon or whatever the fuck it is, everybody thinks it's Vecna, or so many people think it's all sorts of things. I really think it's someone from the group, or possibly even maybe Max. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to connect that yet, but we do know Max is missing, and it would be interesting if that ended up being Max somehow, or somebody that's trying to lead Will to make sure he vanishes. Because if you look at that, it does not really look like a Demogorgon. It looks more human-like, and if you brighten it up, it kind of looks like it's wearing shorts, and it has legs, like human legs. Well, when Will falls, he looks back up, and you see it again, and when you pause it and you kind of brighten it, it looks more human-like even more, and that's within seconds. So it's turning more human-like as we see it. So after that, he runs through the forest, he goes to his house, he gets inside, no one's home, right? Well, keep in mind, right before he walks into his house, look at the shed in the background. The shed light is already on, but no one's home. Why? Why is the shed light on and no one's home? It's not on almost the entire time through the rest of the show, except when Joyce goes in there later in this season to get the axe, okay? And that light's all of a sudden on again. But it's a little odd that no one's home and that light's just on, and it's always intrigued me. So right after that, Will's inside, he's looking, he's all frantic, and he looks out the window, and he looks through some clotheslines that aren't right in front of the window. If you see that house right before, there's no clotheslines directly in front of their window, so it's a little odd that you see that in that scene. But that scene kind of makes me think of the scene in season 4 when we see Max go home to give her mom a letter or to talk to her mom, right? And she sees her mom, and that's when her mom turns into Vecna. Well, her mom is putting clothes on a clothesline. And if you look at like the lighting when Will looks outside, right? That's also the same type of lighting we see in the trailer park when people go missing. Right when Chrissy looks out the window, that's the same type of lighting. And she's also looking out a window, just like Will was in season 1. So it's a little odd that that's the same lighting, and it's right before that person considerably vanishes, not physically, but mentally. So keep that all in mind. So right after Will looks outside, he goes to the phone and it gets interference, okay? And we see that a few times throughout this season, and we'll talk about that more in other parts. But he gets some interference, which allows him not to be able to call 911 or for help. And then all of a sudden, we see the figure go to the front door, and it unlocks that door the same way we see Elle do it at Mama's when she first goes to see Mama. She unlocks that door from the outside the same exact way, which has always intrigued me as well since we've seen that. So who knows? But the only feeling I get from this is that something is leading him to that backyard and to that shed this entire time, trying to make sure that he goes in there to make sure that he vanishes. Because right after that, we see little Noah Schnapp run right outside, and he runs into that shed with the light on, the door open, that gun and ammo right there available, and we get to our finding of the hand. And that hand is outside of that window, and as we know, that figure who was just in front of the house, how the hell would it already be right there, and that hand's already there? And the thing about that hand is, if you watch my Stranger Things secret video, you would know that that hand does not move the entire time, and it's there the entire time, even after Will vanishes. So, with all that being said, all of this leading up to this point, if someone is in the background, I have a feeling that they are truly trying to make sure Will vanishes and that it all happens the correct way. And that would mean that in season 5, if this connects back, that maybe we are seeing a time loop and that now season 5 has to go back to make sure that time goes correctly all the way leading up to season 5 in order for everything to go back to normal. But I do worry that the only way to stop a time loop is usually by sacrifice or somebody putting themselves into that loop and they forever live a loop, which is going to be another theory. And I'm going to leave you with this as my last little question for you. Do you think someone truly is in the background and made sure that Will vanished correctly? And do you think that we are experiencing a time loop that we are now going to get that answer in season 5 that will connect all the way back to when Will vanished in season 1? Because we have our little hint in season 4 that the upside down is stuck on that day. So every single time they've gone into the upside down, they have gone back in time. So we should see that going into season 5 and throughout season 5. And I really, really, truly hope we see some answers to why the fuck that hand was there. And I don't see how we couldn't. I hope you like this one. This is only part 1 of the Will Byers theory. We are going to continue, but I want to leave you with this as well. I'm going to throw some little scenes in here that I want you to go look at before we get into part 2, because this will continue and those will be a part of it. So go to the scene when Joyce is waking up the next morning looking for her keys, right before she calls the Wheeler's house to see if Will is still there. Right when she calls the Wheeler's house, she asks this weird question and she says, "Was that Will I heard in the background?" Listen to that scene and listen closely. It kind of sounds like someone makes a sound while there's that argument going in the background. I'm going to leave you with that. And then also in that scene, right when that scene is about to end, Jonathan peeks over and looks outside into the backyard for no reason at all. So keep that in mind as well. And then also, when Hopper gets to the house with the other cops, that cop Callahan, right when he walks in, he looks out that front window at something and Hopper grabs his attention and makes him look the other way. And trust me, that was the first one that I noticed and it made me notice all the other ones. So keep that all in mind. It's your boy Brandon, DLA Alternative. And as always, keep subscribing, keep liking and following the journey. And you already know, we out.